Nietzsche said, "Be careful, lest in casting out your demon you exorcise the best thing in you." Magic has moved on. It's now about psychology. It's not about spells and spirits but about the unappreciated power of the unconscious mind. This mind is itself magical and is the seat of true magic. The conscious mind, mired in man-made language, has no idea what the unconscious mind really is and how it works. Consciousness is cut off from the rest of the mind, by consciousness itself. Humanity has more or less no understanding of consciousness. It believes it's something different from what it actually is. People believe that consciousness is something that people have as opposed to something they are given. Consciousness is actually an add-on. It is added to people by education, by the acquisition of language. Consciousness is how we convert our perceptions and understanding of the world into words. But reality isn't made of words, so consciousness mediated by man-made language doesn't make contact with actual reality. It describes reality, but in terms different from what reality is. It is both incredibly useful, it gave humanity mastery of the world, and incredibly deceptive. It has in effect totally falsified reality by describing reality in the wrong language, not reality's own language. Science isn't about man-made words. It's about observations and mathematics. Reality isn't about man-made observations. It's about pure mathematics, ontological mathematics. The unconscious speaks reality's language. It has to in order to be part of reality. Consciousness, in a manner of speaking, is not part of reality. It's a supplement. It's artificial. It describes reality without being reality. It's our man-made take on reality, our man-made interpretation or, rather, misinterpretation. The unconscious mind can do magic because it's connected to core reality. The conscious mind cannot do magic because it's not. However, it's connected to the unconscious and so, if it does the right things, it can persuade the unconscious to perform magic on its behalf. The mistake people make when it comes to consciousness is that they associate it with subjective experience. That's not consciousness. That's mere sentience. All animals are sentient. Only humans are conscious. Humans are conscious because of language. Animals are not conscious because they have no language. It's impossible to understand what consciousness is and what it does if you confuse it with sentience, subjective experience, and deny its basis in language. People are baffled by consciousness because they imagine it's something humans possess rather than something they acquire. If humans didn't learn language, they would never be conscious. Most humans are unable to accept that. That's why they don't understand reality. It's also why they don't understand magic. Magic belongs to the operations of reality. Consciousness does not. Consciousness, since it is produced by language, invented language, is itself an invention. Humans invented their own consciousness. They did so because they were able to do what no other animal proved capable of doing, i.e., create a conceptual language. This is the most decisive event in human history, yet it's practically ignored because all scientists and nearly all philosophers make no link between language and consciousness. Language is dismissed as something to do with culture and not something to do with biology. But the whole point about consciousness is that it's a cultural acquisition. That's why humans have it and no other animals do. No other animal has culture, hence no means to acquire consciousness. Humans are uniquely conscious on Earth not because they have a unique biology, humans are just the fifth ape, after all, but because, uniquely, they have culture, they have language. It's culture that differentiates humans from all other animals on Earth. A human is an animal plus culture. All other animals are just animals, minus culture. Consciousness is so remarkable because it's culture added to biology, hence humanity has been conscious for only a relatively short period, the last few thousand years, since the invention of writing. It wasn't spoken language that transformed humanity, it was written language. Writing brought such a degree of complexity to language that it also revolutionized spoken language. The very process of learning how to use complex language transformed how humans use their brains and made them conscious. Humans alone undergo this cultural metamorphosis brought about by education. If education were removed from humanity, humanity would cease to be conscious and revert to ape-like behavior. Humanity with culture is a totally different thing from humanity without culture. Without culture, humans would have one mind only, the unconscious mind, just like animals. Humans would behave purely instinctually, just like animals. Consciousness created a new mind, the cultural mind, the conscious mind, the second mind, the executive mind, the reasoning mind, the planning mind, the decision-making mind, and that's why humans became the masters of Earth. However, despite the extraordinary power of the cultural, conscious mind, it suffered from an immense defect. It was totally disconnected from reality. It could literally make up anything and thus make up its own reality. That's why humans have religions, spiritual systems, political systems, philosophies and sciences that are all totally false. They are all cultural inventions, with no connection to reality. Science tried to force a connection to reality by using an experimental method based on the human senses and their observations, but this method presupposes that the limited, fallible, unreliable, delusional human senses are organs of truth. They're not. What the human senses show reality to be is nothing like what reality actually is. The human senses are evolutionary organs, animal organs, designed to aid the survival and reproduction of animal humans on Earth. The senses did not evolve with regard to truth, logic, reason, knowledge and understanding. To imagine that reality in itself is somehow shown to us by our senses is just about as stupid as imagining that the senses of ants or bees or cockroaches would show these creatures what reality is. They don't have a clue. Before humans were conscious, they had no idea what their senses were showing them. Scientists don't understand that it's our cultural consciousness that interprets what our senses are showing us, but our cultural consciousness is mediated by man-made words, which have nothing to do with reality. Humanity just made them up. The whole of science is just an unreal, man-made abstraction brought about by cultural consciousness and the labeling of sensory objects by way of made-up human concepts. The only part of science that is connected with reality is the mathematical part, and that's because mathematics is the language of reality. Mathematics is the only language humanity didn't make up, hence the only language that doesn't falsify reality. It's reality's own language and it has existed forever. Humans discover the language of mathematics. They don't invent it. That's why mathematics alone is true, and everything else is false. That's why science is successful, up to a point, but ultimately falsifies reality. Science needs to transmute into ontological mathematics in order to stop falsifying reality, to stop distorting reality by way of the incredibly dubious human senses. The unconscious, unlike consciousness, naturally speaks reality's own language of ontological mathematics. That's why it can control the body and consciousness cannot. Consciousness makes decisions, but it's the unconscious that carries them out. Just as consciousness doesn't have a clue how to make a dream, it doesn't have a clue how to move arms, legs, hands, fingers, and so on. The unconscious does all of that. The relationship between the conscious and the unconscious minds is, at one level, that of a total fantasist, the conscious mind, and a total realist, the unconscious mind. The unconscious mind actually connects to reality. The conscious mind is just a cultural invention, which can connect to reality only via the unconscious. This is a tremendously problematic relationship since consciousness, by definition, doesn't know what the unconscious is all about. All of humanity's bizarre behavior is located in the mismatch between the conscious and unconscious minds, and their immense struggle to work together as one, coherent unit. Consciousness cannot perform magic exactly because it is a cultural invention. The unconscious can perform magic exactly because it is hardwired to reality. The whole point of magic is for consciousness, which doesn't have any idea how to actually make real things happen in the world, communicate with the unconscious to make it do things, magic things, it wouldn't normally do. By default, the unconscious only executes default, archetypal, instinctual behaviors. Getting it do the paranormal, the magical, isn't easy. The unconscious mind is hardwired to the physical world and can change reality by all manner of means. Consciousness cannot. The conscious mind is like a CEO who, himself, can do nothing, but who has a huge power at his disposal, his corporation. Consciousness is an executive that gives orders. Its workforce is the unconscious, which is the part of the mind that actually affects the world. The most remarkable thing that ever happened to humanity, the supreme magic act, was for culture to be added to biology and create consciousness. Consciousness, because it is cultural, is free from biological evolution and can instead evolve at the speed of culture. That's why humans have changed the shape of the world in a few thousand years, and why every other animal on Earth hasn't changed at all in that same time. They are not changing at the pace of culture. Only humans are doing so. Some creatures linked to humans, pets, in particular, have undergone more rapid changes than other animals because they have been swept up in humanity's slipstream and indirectly exposed to human culture, which has also affected their behavior because of their amazingly close relationship to humans.